I got my first job with an LA film company. Taylor McPartland, an alumnus from Whittier College and CEO of Scale Health, was at one time a co-founder of what's unfortunately a now defunct company called Filmbreak. Taylor planned to return to speak at Whittier College through a now defunct program put on by the Career Center called Backpack to Briefcase, which I've talked about several times in past episodes. I found that filmbreak.com was a social media-esque website to promote films. You could register your film, generate interest to build an audience, and the trending films would be shown on the website's homepage. As I mentioned in Season 3, Episode 6, back then I was the videographer for the Career Center at Whittier College, and my employer, Linda Ross, suggested I use that website. So I signed up for filmbreak.com on September 29th, 2012, in preparation for February 20th, 2013, and started to work on my presence there over the next 5 months. For over half of my freshman year of college, I made sure I was established as the guy who shot each Backpack to Briefcase event. So by springtime, I knew everyone that ran the events and knew how to best take advantage of the opportunities that presented. That also meant making sure Carpe Diem was prominent on the Filmbreak website. Most of the members of ATIC Studios were split all across the country, but director of photography Alex Hackworth and screenwriter Vishal Kolar were two filmmaking friends of mine that I liked and trusted. So the way I saw it, we were a filmmaking trio at Whittier College that was motivated to make things happen. And because of that, I asked Alex Hackworth if he'd like to join ATIC Studios, under the belief that releasing projects under one name would help all of our careers, and he agreed. I was relieved because he was both a great filmmaker that I was happy to be friends with, but also because the director of photography from the ATIC 5 seemed to be gaining interest in other careers instead, and I wondered if Alex could kind of fill the space in the filmmaking team that was left behind. This ended up being a great collaboration that lasted all the way into 2017-2018 era. And at the time, I was happy to report that the ATIC 5 had now expanded to a total of 7 members, and it would soon increase to 8 when I asked Alex's roommate, Vishal, to join as well. So by February 20th, 2013, we got Carpe Diem on the Filmbreak homepage before that night's Backpack to Briefcase panel on the arts and filmmaking. 6:45 p.m. rolled around and I did my usual routine, but paid even more attention to the speakers than usual. Hearing from Chris Olivarez, who is the co-CEO of Spectrum Productions.
You need to be passionate about what you do and really believe in what you're doing. Otherwise, you guys are doing the wrong thing. If you're not loving what you do and you're not enjoying it, and you're not passionate about it, you're doing something's missing. You'll never find happiness that way.
Annalee Paulo, an entertainment lawyer.
I never went into it thinking it was going to be lucrative. I just knew that there was really nothing else I was really all that interested in except doing something with the movies, like anything with the movies. Like it didn't really matter what it was as long as I was involved. And I think Whittier really taught me that. Like you're surrounded by people who love what they do and they're making money doing it. That is an example. If that's modeling for you, if you're paying for that here at Whittier, I think that's such a great lesson to learn, and I think it's a life lesson.
Michelle Mace, the designer for themed entertainment and Alexandrite design.
What's helped me the most, based on a liberal arts degree, is the ability to write, because so much of the communication that happens nowadays is in email. And when you're reaching out to somebody and asking them to have lunch, you're writing. When you're writing a resume or cover letter, it's always writing, and you want to sound like you know something and be relatable and just welcoming, all these things, and just having that confidence and knowing that what you're writing is gonna. Having the confidence before you even start writing is important, I feel like, and that's something I really got out of Whittier.
The youngest speaker was Erik Escobar, a stand-up comedian and writer who was in improv when he was at Whittier, so we had actually spoken and had mutual friends because he'd just graduated.
I don't think you guys understand how amazing the community and the network is of Whittier College. Like, Whittier just has an amazing community, and they really look out for you and really try to help you in your future.
And then there was Taylor McPartland himself, the co-founder and president of Filmbreak.
Whittier does a very good job of kind of putting you into positions that don't allow you to be 100% comfortable all the time. Whether that be taking classes that you might that going in you might not feel you completely excel at, or if you have stage fright doing presentations regularly or debates or whatever it might be.
That panel ended around 8 p.m., and when Alex, Vishal, and I introduced ourselves to Taylor as part of the Carpe Diem crew, he recognized the movie from his own website. So we traded business cards, and the next thing I knew, the three of us were planning a meeting with him and his business partner, Kánish. We agreed and suddenly realized we'd just gotten an interview with a real film company in Santa Monica, California. I'd never even been to Santa Monica before. This felt like a huge win, especially because we were the only Whittier College students that he asked to come in. But that wasn't even the end of my networking for the night, because as I packed up my gear, Ian Rao came up to speak to me as well. He was a sophomore at Whittier College who'd recently executive produced and acted in a feature film called The A-List, which would eventually release on Netflix. He walked back to Stauffer with me as we talked about filmmaking. Ian and I talked on the ground floor lounge of Stauffer for a while. I was fascinated with how he'd been able to get that prominent of a position on a large production for his first film credits ever, and I wanted to pick his brain about it. I wondered if we'd work together one day, but his sights seemed to be set much higher than anything I was working on. Just as we were wrapping up our conversation, Amy Lee Hoffine and June Nunez came out of the small kitchen that was an offshoot of that lounge and offered me some freshly baked chocolate chip cookies, so some of my friends met Ian that night as well. But with a film meeting on the books, a number of great networking opportunities, and homemade cookies for the first time in what felt like years, it was a great night all around. And what I learned from that night was important. Put in work beforehand so that you stand out when you have an opportunity to speak to someone who can change your life. Because no other Whittier College students got the opportunity to work for Filmbreak. And what made us different was that rather than empty promises of what we might be able to do, we had impressed Taylor McPartland with something much more concrete, our actual previous work. It reminded me a little bit of how I'd gotten the job at the Career Center in the first place, by having the previous work to talk about with my boss, Linda Ross. Fun fact, as an 18-year-old filmmaker, I had somehow never watched the Oscars before, and my friend Natalie Dallas said I needed to. So about a week after the Backpack to Briefcase panel on February 24th, I watched the Oscars in the Stauffer Lounge, and I think Natalie, Alex Hackworth, and I were all there, possibly a couple others. Seth MacFarlane hosted, so my first experience of the Oscars was that they're pretty funny. But that meeting with Filmbreak was scheduled for a few weeks out, so tune in next week to hear about 3 things that happened before that meeting. Convocation 2013, a film called Calico Noir, and Whittier College Confessions.